Hello students, today we'll talk about Coulomb's law in its vector form, and we'll also talk about superposition principle. So let us start. To understand today's topic, we need to have a basic idea about what is Coulomb's law. So we know that it is the law which gives us electrostatic force between two stationary point charges, and formula, if we see, it is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 by r square, can also be written as k q1 q2 by r square, only when the medium is vacuum, not otherwise. So we need to be careful there. If you have some other medium, we use 1 by 4 pi epsilon q1 q2 by r square instead of epsilon 0. Then we should be knowing two limitations, that it is applicable for stationary charges only and point charges only, and then we also have one more quantity, dielectric constant, which is also called relative permittivity, given as ratio of two permittivities, permittivity of medium to permittivity of vacuum. And we also know its significance, more the dielectric constant, less the force between the two charges. So if you have any doubt in any of this topic, you should watch the previous video carefully and then come back to this video rather than trying to understand this in first go. So let us start with today's topic. Consider two charges Q1 and Q2. We know that there must be some attraction or repulsion between the two when placed close to each other, and we want to find out how much is the electrostatic force. So what we know about Coulomb's law is that it is k q1 q2 by r square, but here the problem is we don't have distance between the two given. Instead, we are told that q1 is at position vector r1 with respect to some point O, and q2 is at some vector r2 with respect to origin O of some coordinate system. Now, how do we find out force between q1 and q2? So we assume that the distance between the two is r, but we don't know what is r. We know what is r1, we know what is r2, we don't know what is r. So what to do? So here we can say that the r, that is the distance between the two charges r, we can find out if we take mod of resultant vector, that is mod of r1 minus r2 or r2 minus r1, and then I can express the force as F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 upon mod of r1 minus r2 whole square. Is it necessary to write r1 minus r2 only? No, it is not necessary. You can also write force as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 by mod of r2 minus r1 whole square. Why r1 minus r2 or r2 minus r1 order is not important? Because we are taking mod. Otherwise, the order is important. Now here we have one more problem. The other problem here is what we have now is the scalar form. What if you are asked that in which direction q1 will experience force, or in which direction q2 will experience force? So this equation will not be able to give us answer of such question. For that we need to have force along with its direction. So if we consider force on charge q1 due to 2 as F12, then F12 is given as 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 by r square with unit vector r12. What is r12? It is nothing but vector r1 minus vector r2 upon mod of r1 minus r2. If you go back to basics of unit vector, you'll find out that it is vector upon its own magnitude. And then on simplification, we get our equation of F12, that is force on charge 1 due to charge 2. What if I want F21? What is F21? F21 is force on 2 due to 1. Now how force on 1 due to 2 and 2 due to 1 differs? Suppose if Q1 and Q2 both are like charges, then Q1 will try to go away from Q2 and Q2 will also try to move apart. In that case, the only difference is in direction. Whatever is the force on 1 due to 2, same will be force on 2 due to 1 magnitude wise. Direction wise they should be opposite. And then however expression will differ. Expression of F21 will differ from F12. Let us see. So F12 is having vector R1 minus vector R2 in it, whereas if you consider force on 2 due to 1, it will have vector R2 minus R1. So we should be careful here that if you are talking about FAB, that is force on A due to B, you will have RA minus RB. If you are talking about Fxy, that is force on X due to Y, it will be Rx minus Ry in numerator. In denominator, Rx minus Ry or Ry minus Rx won't make much difference because we are taking mod. So this is a vector form of Coulomb's law, which is not only giving you magnitude, it is also giving you direction of the force. Now, what if I have where I have more than 2 charges? Consider this system where I have 5 charges. And now we know that there must be so many forces. If you consider a single charge Q2, then Q2 itself is experiencing force due to other 4 charges. So 4 forces are acting on Q2. And what if I want to find out what is the resultant force acting on Q2? Okay, again, first we need to know where are the charges. So we have our coordinate system. Let the charges be placed at position vectors R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, and then we can individually find out forces acting, and then we can try to sum up. So let us see. So here is the system, and first we'll try to express force on 2 due to 1. We know that F21 is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 Q2 Q1 bracket R2 minus R1 upon mod R2 minus R1 whole cube. This is force on 2 due to 1. Similarly, I can find out force on 2 due to 3, that is F23. The only difference is instead of R2 minus R1, now I have R2 minus R3, both in numerator and denominator. Similarly, R2 minus R4 if I am talking about force on 2 due to 4, and R2 minus R5 if I am talking about force on 2 due to 5. So I have 4 forces. But what is the resultant force acting on second charge? So superposition principle says that when you have more than one forces acting on the given charge, to find out resultant force, take vector sum of forces due to individual charge. What is F21? Force on 2 due to individual charge Q1. What is F23? Force on 2 due to individual charge Q3. So to find out resultant force, I'll have to take vector sum of all these forces. Resultant force is summation of forces due to individual charge, vector sum of the forces, and then if we substitute all our values, we end up with a bit scary equation. And so to shorten up, we use some mathematical symbol of summation. So this equation can also be written in this fashion, because in this 4 terms we have 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 being repeated, Q2 is repeated, R2 is repeated. So the variable parameter R1, R3, R4, R5 are expressed as I, and we mentioned the limit that I starts from 1 and I goes up to 5, with the only constraint that I cannot be 2. What if I becomes 2? Okay, if I is 2, then you will have R2 minus R2. You will have one more term here, which is having R2 minus R2, which is not making any sense. It is force on 2 due to 2. So you should mention that I cannot be equal to 2. What if I have a system of n charges instead of 5? If you have n charges and if you want to find out force on j charge, this is force on second charge. If I want force on charge j, qj, instead of q2 I will have qj, and if I have n charges instead of 5 I will have n. So that equation should look like this. The way here we have I not equal to 2, in this case we should mention that I cannot be equal to j because you are finding out force on j charge. So this is the resultant force using superposition principle. So now if we conclude, now we know that force on charge QA due to QB can be given as FAB is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 QA QB bracket vector RA minus vector RB upon mod RA minus RB whole cube. What is RA? What is RB? RA and RB are position vectors of charges QA and QB respectively. So this is the vector form of Coulomb's law, which we know now. Then we also know about superposition principle. What it says, that resultant force on given charge due to so many charges is nothing but vector sum of force due to individual charges. And then if we try to express it in mathematical form for system of n charges ranging from q1, q2 up to qn, the force on j charge can be given as this. Okay, so this is vector form of Coulomb's law and superposition principle. We keep it up to this. Thank you.